I am actually quite shocked that of all the reform councils, that Leicestershire has not been, shall we say, singled out for one specific issue. Now, you know this if you've been following this channel. You can probably see the title and description, so you know what we're going to be talking about. However, the Reform Council decided in its bizarre infinite wisdom that it would appoint a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old to be in charge of children's and adult services. I cannot stress what a dumb decision this is. And bear in mind, the 19-year-old, when he was asked what experience he had of, being put in charge of, being in charge of Leicestershire's, child services, his response was, "Oh, don't worry. I was a child not too long ago myself, so I know exactly what they need." Meanwhile, this guy is in charge of all children with special needs in that county, children in care, all the responsibilities that goes with. He is not prepared. He is not prepared for the job he has just taken on. Neither is the 22-year-old either, who's also in charge of adult social services. He's got no idea. And yet it is shocking that they have been allowed to get into this position. And I'm really glad to see today that the professional body of social workers has now started to voice their concerns about what is going on in these councillors and with these councillors, and the fact that they've got no idea what they're doing. So we're going to have more of a look into this today, because quite frankly, this should be highlighted. When you have a professional body like this going, yeah, they really shouldn't be in those roles. You can tell there's going to be some trouble down the line. And big trouble on this. You can guarantee that. So before we do go get into this, though, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Of course, there's a link to my Patreon page, the YouTube thank you button, there's the Buy Me Coffee link as well, and of course, there's a YouTube membership button down below as well. So thank you much to everyone who does support the channel, even if you do just click the like or share button. So let's go on into this, shall we? So this comes again from the Professional Social Worker magazine, with the title of "The Reform Councillors, aged 19 and 22, in charge of children's and adult services at local authority." Under that, it says, social workers are now raising serious questions over the clash of values and the lack of experience of the newly led council members of the Leicestershire County Council. And those are the two people in question in charge of adult services and child services in Leicestershire County Council. What on earth are they thinking to do that? Anyway, let's get into this, shall we? So, concerns are now mounting over the appointment of two reform councillors as political leads for children and adult services in Leicestershire. Joseph Boam, of 22, now heads up adult social care in Leicestershire County Council, and Charles Pugsley, 19, who is still at university, has been made a cabinet member for children and family services. Anyway, these pair were appointed following the local elections in May and are now responsible for multi-million pound budgets. Multi-million pound budgets they are in charge of. That should be terrifying you. That genuinely should be terrifying you. And bear in mind, I've got no problem if someone of 19 or 22 got elected. Excellent. Great. You're being involved in politics. You're getting involved. However, I would hugely question any party that suddenly decided, as in this case, that a 19-year-old who is still at university has been put in charge of children and family services. And same for the 22-year-old who's been put in charge of adult services. Anyway, Councillor Deborah Taylor, leader of the opposition at the council, and of course, previous cabinet member for Children and Family Services, told the PSW magazine, my concern, of course, regarding the appointment of Mr. Bourne and Mr. Pugsley is whether they actually possess the necessary business, organizational, or even life experience to manage these complex portfolios. Adult and social care services and the budget amounts to approximately 75% of the council's £616 million budget. Yeah, totally. What could go wrong there? But it gets even better. Councillor Boam, recently exposed by Hope Not Hate, a group opposing far-right extremism, as now appearing to show support for now misogynist Andrew Tate in posts from a now deleted Twitter account. Oh, surprise, surprise. Anyway, according to Hope Not Hate, the investigation, which also uncovered racism in the local reform branch, Boam commented that during the last World Cup, Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Iran are all out. The way things are going, England may end up being the only Muslim country left in the World Cup. Gee. What a good pick to be in charge of adult services, right, in Leicestershire. This week, of course, Councillor Boam also showed support for banning the burqa. Gee, surprise, surprise. After Reform MP Sarah Puchin asked the Prime Minister if she was going to ban them. Reform Party Chairman Zia Youssef described the question as dumb and resigned that same day. But Councillor Boam said on Twitter, she's absolutely right. This is a public safety issue. No one should be allowed to hide their identity in public. It's time we had the debate. But Boam was also recently advised by opposition leaders to, quote, educate himself on mental health matters after another social media post from a now deleted account also resurfaced online, in which he allegedly said depression isn't real. As you can see right there, saying depression isn't real. You feel sad, you continue with life because there's no alternative. You will always be depressed if your life is depressing. Fix it. Gee, that guy's in charge of adult social care. Can you be any wonder why people might be quite concerned about the fact that these two are in charge of two very important services at a local council? Anyway, Reform Party UK Exposed also claimed that the message was posted back in December under 2022 under the account username of Cllr Joseph Boam II. Councillor Taylor said that these posts have now been verified by Hope Not Hate, and the Leicester Gazette have also been dismissed by Mr. Boam as fake news and a political spear. However, these verified screenshots now undermine his denials, raising questions about his judgment and suitability for a role overseeing vulnerable adults, many of them who rely on mental health and social services. He has refused to acknowledge or even retract these raised concerns about his current stance and his ability now to advocate for mental health services. I think you can see why someone who just goes, depression, fix it, get over it, right? He's now in charge of mental health services. What on earth? Just what on earth is going on here? But gets even worse. So, Councillor Taylor has also contacted the Reform leader of the council, Councillor Dan Harrison, with her concerns, but has so far had no response. She said the council's responsibilities require leaders with, of course, sound judgment and respect for the whole Leicestershire community. Mr. Brom's documented history now of offensive posts and denial of depressions of legitimate directly now conflicts with the empathy and expertise needed for adult social care. The lead member for children and families has over 200 statutory duties, including many for now the most vulnerable children in our county, along with responsibility for a budget of over 200 million. I do have concerns that a 19-year-old that person may not have yet the life experience required for such roles. Again, I agree. Why on earth would you put a 19-year-old newly elected person in charge of a £200 million budget that is responsible for helping some of the most vulnerable children in that county? That is insane. So the Social Workers Union now recently described described reform now as a looming shadow for social workers and civil rights. In an article published now in the wake of the local election, John McGowan, the General Secretary of the SWU, said this is a party that wants to leave the European Convention on Human Rights and introduce a new British Bill of Rights to replace the Human Rights Act of 1998. The party's announcement now of intended funding cuts now for specialist diversity, equality, and equity and inclusion roles, coupled with now the pledge to ban flags representing solidarity, is an active endorsement of the oppression of peoples of any difference. An anonymous social worker now from Leicester also expressed concerns to PSW, claiming that reform's beliefs did not sit well with the social workers' ethics, saying, if you think about social workers' values and ethos, there is nothing consistent with these within reform. If you have a party saying, if you don't have so many immigrants, you will have a housing and job, that is dangerous. It is perception of immigrants now from fake news and the politics of fear. Further disquiet has now also been expressed on social media. One worker who has been practicing for over 42 years said that they were now worried people with no experience of ASC, that's adult social care, were now in charge of this vital area. Another said, you're all too young to be in such responsible positions of power. But it gets even more worse because this is where the Doge audits come in. This week, of course, we announced the deployment now of the American-style Doge-style consultants trying to make savings under these local councillors under its leadership. Councillor Boam said on Twitter that Reform's UK Doge has now been launched to root out wasteful spending, starting at Kent County Council. Keep your eyes on Kent, and Leicestershire won't be too far behind. During the May local election campaign, Reform pronounced Leicestershire County Council was broken, wasting staggering sums, unable to now effectively deliver local services. The Children's and Family Department, former head of that, Councillor Talley, has now said an outstanding Ofsted rating. But Reform won 25 of the 55 seats in Leicestershire, while the party does not hold majority and no formal deals were struck with, of course, other parties. Following his appointment, Joseph Boam said it is a, quote, huge privilege to be entrusted with this responsibility, and I'm committed to try and deliver real change and support for the residents across our county. Charles Pugsley also said, at 19, I've just been appointed a cabinet minister for children's services at Leicester County Council. Some say I am young. I say that exactly what is needed for this role needs. No, it's not. It's not what that role needs at all. I understand the challenges that young people face today because I've been there. I'm now making sure that young voices are heard. Both Leicestershire County Council and Reform were approached by the PSW for comment, but none, of course, received in time for publication. However, Brom recently told Leicestershire Live, saying, I won't be engaging with fake news or political smears. My focus remains on delivering for people I was elected to serve. And of course, that's what they'll do. Anytime any situation comes up or anything like that, oh, that's just fake news. That's just political smear. Meanwhile, what happens to those people, they are then responsible for. That is terrifying. That is generally terrifying. And I am shocked this is not getting more attention than it should. Like, national newspapers should be on this. They really should. Like, this is terrifying. That you've put a 19-year-old who is still at university in charge of child child services. There's no experience in that type of thing. You've put a 22-year-old in charge of adult social services who clearly, from his previous statements, has no respect or any emotional intelligence when it comes to people with mental health. Again, local elections are so important. So important. And if you live in Leicester, my best example is, well, I'd get out there and start protesting. I'd start saying those two people, not acceptable. I'd start getting petitions, getting them out saying they should not be in that position. They should not be in that role. Start going to council meetings, start harrying them. Start sending letters to them saying, you said this. It is confirmed you said this. What on earth makes you think you are suitable for this role? Oh yeah, this is happening. Why aren't you doing this? Why is this failing when you said you would be like the best thing since sliced bread? I can already see it now. You're going to get a disaster somewhere in Leicestershire with either adult or child social care. Anyway, as always, let me know what you think down below, because honestly, there's so much more you could say in front of this. Really could. Makes me really angry. Like, makes me really angry that they've done this. Because there's going to be so many people's lives that get affected by these two idiots. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all next time.